Alright, so remote viewing. What is remote viewing to you? What does that mean to you when I say the word remote viewing? You think it's some special person required to remote view something? You hear a lot about the star children in whatever galaxy you can possibly dream up. You hear about the Russians employing mind-controlled agents and remote viewers. You hear about them employing these star children because they have, or indigo children, because they have special abilities to escape the confines of their own consciousness and begin to make that trip or ascension, whatever you want to call it, into mass consciousness or separated consciousness. Consciousness that both you and I know exists in between each of our consciousness points, yet for some reason is being trashed and destroyed. The very idea that there is a framework between each of our centers of consciousness that allows for entry and exit of frequencies and entities. It's like when you talk about life after or near-death experiences and you hear the person talk about being operated on in an operating room. And then for some reason, they die and they seem to float up above their own body. And they can see their own body. How could you possibly see your own body unless it was just an internal projection made by your subconscious experience as you are still in fact laying there? How could all of the particles and subatomic molecules that comprise your living conscious experience, how could all of that be able to rise up and look at itself in total disconnection, almost in suspension in this mass consciousness realm? How could that be possible? You know, because you still got to learn, and then, you know, you hear stories about people. I mean, they're explaining what they see, and they're able to maturely describe what they see in very descriptive terminology, such as colors on fabric and other aspects of certain aesthetic detail. How could they, that basically implies the fact that they're bringing with them in this light consciousness body, they're bringing with them the ability to discern in a maturely conscious fashion physical properties of their own body and the surroundings that come with it. So in that sense, it would lend some credence to the possibility that no, you're not actually leaving your body or what comprises you, what comprises the self, but in fact, it is an internal projection or an internal hologram, which is choosing that moment to manifest itself in the consciousness realm, your own consciousness realm. People get really caught up in this notion that everything that occurs, dreaming, remote viewing, having visions, all of these things, approximately 95% of our population, seem to mysteriously conclude occur inside of your own mind, inside of your own consciousness. Well, why? Have you ever asked yourself why I seem to come to that specific conclusion? Without ever having even attempted to bridge that consciousness realm. Now, I understand that the whole fact that you would assume to be bridging something means that you would first have to assume that there is something to bridge. So maybe that's one of the most important things in this process of re-entering that point of nascence, that point, as I was discussing in the previous recording, about that point in time or consciousness when you are, in fact, just entering this light consciousness in a flesh body. That moment in time where you're not capable of discerning that physical actions that you make with your light body have an interaction with this light realm. You see, there's a moment before a baby understands that when it creates an event, it will actually have an effect. The cause that it creates actually has a physical, noticeable, observable effect to the light body. Well, if it takes us so long, in terms of time relative to when we first re-entered this light realm, it takes us so long to finally realize that, you know what, the more and more I try and attempt and make a conscious effort with my light body to interact with this light realm, the more I attempt to do that, the greater the effect it would appear in this light realm to have on my surroundings. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to learn that? If you think in relative terms of your life, of a human being's light body life or conscious life, why is it so difficult in relative terms to make that connection that what you do physically in this realm will have an effect in this realm? It's a fairly long time, especially if you look at it in terms of the life of a solar system or a planet. That would be millions and millions and millions of years. So, we make this connection physically, and we're so intent on making this connection. We're so intent. And then once we've figured it out, isn't it the greatest thing in the world? We can pick up a ball and we can throw a ball, and the ball travels a certain trajectory, a certain speed. And it's amazing. Isn't it amazing how you're able to do that? Once you figure that out, you throw that ball, and it seems to fly forever. Until the force of gravity kicks in, of course, but in that moment, you just think that basically the world is your oyster. The possibilities are endless. And this is why it becomes a paradox. Because it's a trick. That point of time in consciousness, that when that realization occurs, where you think that the possibilities are endless, is in fact the very moment that you have completely shut off that valve to that mass consciousness realm. And all of your external environment. Of course, you know, people that are listening to this are not stupid. I'm sure you've seen a television show before. You know just how much we are molded and manipulated into constantly living for this reality. Constantly trying to throw that ball as far as we can throw it. So how about this? How about instead of picking up and throwing that ball, trying to throw it as far as you can throw it, you pick up your consciousness and you throw that as far as you can throw it. You see, the beautiful thing about it is consciousness isn't bound by gravity. Gravity doesn't exist on that level of reality. When I use the term reality, you and I both know that it doesn't apply. But you know what I'm talking about. So, you hear a lot about the remote viewing. And, you know, people are really caught up. People are extremely caught up in all this bullshit that is out there for you to waste your time on. Purpose of it, of course, is to confuse you and put you in a state of decay. And one thing I would never ever suggest for you to do is to meditate. Never try to do that. Never try to focus. Do not focus your attention. If you need to be focused, if consciousness needs to focus in around you,